Bill C-5 was slammed through Parliament last week, becoming law before the Canada Day July 1st deadline Prime Minister Mark Carney had previously set. First Nations are upset over the passage of this bill, and there have been demonstrations in Ottawa and Toronto hoping to stop the bill. The federal government has promised to meet with all Indigenous groups about the legislation this month. But at the moment, details of those meetings are very slim. To explain more, we're joined now by our APTN senior online reporter, Karyn Pugliese. Karyn, thank you so much for making some time for us. Can we start off by you reminding our viewers what is specifically upsetting Indigenous groups with regards to this recent bill passed by the Senate?
Oh, we might need a longer show. I'll try to get through the list as quickly as I can. Like, listen, I mean, first of all, there was very little pre-consultation on the bill. And when people saw the bill for the first time, they just had so many questions about it. Essentially, the bill is meant to speed up energy projects so that they can get created and operating, like get through the approvals process in 2 years or less, which is much faster than what happens now. And so they had a lot of questions about, well, what does that mean for consultation? What does that mean for environmental protections? Can the science even be done in that amount of time? And for Indigenous communities that already feel under pressure, what kind of time pressure is that going to be on them? And will they be fully consulted in a meaningful way like they want to? So there were a lot of questions like that about the bill. And then there were some things about the language of the bill. There's no non-derogation clause in the beginning of it, which is customary in bills where First Nations rights or Indigenous rights might be impacted. There's some language in there that was kind of a little wonky, where it says they'll consult Indigenous peoples whose rights may be adversely affected by the carrying out of the project. So there's that kind of kind of language in there all the time that it's just like maybe, might be. And it's very different for the provinces. There was an amendment made that says there's the written consent of a province or territory is required when a project passes through that province or territory. The same is not there for Indigenous people. Then there's a bunch of regulations, environmental protections, etc., that Cabinet can skip. And it doesn't specifically say why they would skip it, but just that they can decide to skip it. And that includes some things like wildlife assessment acts, impact assessment act, those kind of things. So all of that were problems with the bill itself. Then it's rushed through in 2 weeks. So it goes before the House. There were 3 Indigenous leaders, the national chief of the AFN, the president of the ITK, and the president of the MMF were the only ones who got to speak to the bill, and they got to speak to it once. It went through a bunch of amendments. They never got back to be able to say how they felt about those amendments or what was happening on the final bill before it passed. And a bunch of leaders, particularly from Ontario, there was about a dozen chiefs that showed up that wanted to testify and do witness before the Transport Committee. They were given a time, and then it was taken away, and they were told there was no time to actually consult them on the bill. So people have a variety of things that they're upset about.
Karyn, there is talks of a meeting between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Indigenous groups to help set things straight. Can you explain, when did that idea for the meeting first come up and why?
Yeah, it came up after third reading. I think because of a lot of pressure. There was a lot of criticism over the lack of consultations on the bill and what consultations are going to look like going forward. So that came up the Friday that it passed on June 20th. Prime Minister Carney came out and said there was going to be like 3 summits. And one of the summits is supposed to be July the 1st, July 17th, with First Nations rights holders and leaders and experts, and that's going to happen in Ottawa, and he's going to be there with his ministers. There'll be another one in July with Inuit leaders, and another one to follow at some date in the future with Métis leaders.
And so far, Karyn, what are some of the details about this meeting?
Yeah, there aren't any. That's all we know. That is what the Prime Minister said. Minister Mandy Galmasti was there, along with him, the Indigenous Services Minister, and she said they've been talking about this quite a lot behind the scenes at Cabinet, but actually just hadn't made it public. This is a very short time to pull this all together. Because if you're talking about Indigenous right holders being present, like just for First Nations leaders, that would be 633 leaders that have to get to Ottawa by July 17th. And we didn't get any answers out of the Privy Council, who are organizing this so far, about who's going to be included. But a source close to the Privy Council told us that they don't have a list yet. They, like for a guest list, they don't have a venue set up, and everything seems very preliminary.
Karyn, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.